doing? Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available for Monday the 20th of July 2020 with me, Daniel Ruiz Tizon, episode 252, take 2. I was focused on trying to record as live so I can limit all the time I spend every week editing things. And right away I knocked something during my introduction, the mirror. The Zoom H1 mic battery's running low today, so I'm having to keep an eye on it today using the small vanity mirror, and I can see that right now it is working. Anyway, hope you're all well, keeping on doing what you need to be doing to keep yourself going. Post-run endorphins should help allow for some blue sky podcasting to creep into today's show. The downside of recording after the run is one of the neighbours usually starts mowing the front lawn around midday. So I won't be able to record this episode right away after my run. It's a bit of a trade-off. It's actually now gone 1,400 hours, a couple of hours on from my run. I'm not aware that she's done the lawn yet. I'm hoping that she's not doing it late this week and that it coincides with me recording this episode. Slow start for me this morning. I do really well at the weekends these days in terms of downing tools. That whole working everyday business, driving myself on with the writing, it's been practically eradicated. It's cost me too much, not got me enough, and I think that's a far healthier state of affairs now. Housework, reading, Star Wars, football, reading, cat naps, that's the weekend, peaking with sloth Saturday, of course, and the calzone pizza. But it does mean that I'm starting to dread Mondays a bit, if truth be told. The amount of stuff to do at the start of the week, the editing and uploading of the show, then the promoting, which is the worst of it. You know, I enjoy this bit, the recording of it, but the rest of it is just horrible. If I had been continuing to work like a dog at the weekends, I always went into Mondays sharper. But now, even though I know that downing tools at the weekend is absolutely the right thing to do if I want to have something approaching a life, it means that my bullet point lists are much longer for the start of the week. I know most of what needs to be done on the day to get the week going, but there is so much of it, and I do find it hard now getting into Mondays. So this morning I was prepping the show. I checked the weather on the BBC, 19 degrees in London until midday, and anything over that running wise I start to toil. So that's why I thought it would do me good to run before recording today. Normally it's the other way round. The morning run does increase the risk of running into the park abuser. I'm not sure that she recognises me now that I'm running Scout and without the beanie hat. But, you know, the running can be hard enough without being abused on your laps. Friday was a little too warm for me on the run. I was about 6 minutes off my usual time. Didn't do 3 full laps. But I did do some repetitions at the end of the 2 laps, which helped me bridge the time I would be losing by not doing 3 full laps. Mentally, I tried to prepare for the start of the run, the retweet route where I hit the uphill segment first. And yet it's always a shock to the body. And I'm thinking right away, oh my goodness, why is this so difficult? And that happened again today. I just wish I was able to run in a flat park. For a start, I think I'd be faster. And of course, running in a flat park is going to be easier. But it was a fairly good run today. This morning I did just over 9k. There is absolutely no chance of matching the 11k I was doing 2 or 3 months back. Not in this weather. And I think anything over 19, 20 degrees, I'm certainly struggling. As I was nearing the end of my 3rd lap, I did see the abuser arriving in the park on her bike. Wears like this long black cloak. She's got that 60s type cycling helmet, which is pretty smart. She was wearing a face mask. It's actually not too different from her normal look. So I was glad, though, that I was wrapping up on the run just as she was finally turning up. And I'm pleased that I got today's run out of the way. I do need to find an armband. I had the keys down my socks again today, and I've cut up the ankle again. I think my last 2 runs I've had the keys in the ankle. So I just really do need to sort out my running gear. The ankle is fairly sore. I knew by the time I was on that final lap that the ankle was going to be sore afterwards. The run was fairly comfortable. A few signs again on my laps that I'm keeping pace with other runners. The strange thing today was that I appeared to be the only one running in the direction that I was going in, and I don't have enough common sense to know whether when it starts to get warm, whether you're meant to run towards the sun, away from the sun, but I certainly noted that no one was running the same way that I was running. Everyone was coming towards me today, so I wondered whether I was making some running faux pas. I've not been doing this long enough to know how it all works, but yeah, fairly comfortable run in the end. I think everything went a bit strange at the end. Well, I know it did go strange at the end. I had an incident which right after the run, towards the end of the run, and right after the run, something that shook me up to the extent that I recorded something right afterwards on my phone that I'm simply adding on to the end of this week's regular show. I thought that by the time I start recording, I might forget some stuff about the incident, about what I was feeling, how I was feeling, why I acted like I did, and I just thought I need to record something that's just going to help me get this thing out of my system, and you'll be able to hear it right at the end of this week's show. That marred today's run, but a couple of hours on from that now, I can't really forget that I've had another good run, and the important thing for me, more than the fitness, it really is just about trying to do things that help me feel positive during what is a very difficult time. This weekend just gone, he said, moving on with the show. I was really fretting about debuting the face mask at Like Small Talk Shop when picking up the neighbour's paper. The neighbour isn't actually well at the moment, which is another worry. I do moan about the errands all of the time, if I'm honest. A big part of that is down to the actual material I have to buy. I think I'd probably moan less if it was a broadsheet that I was buying twice a week. And also just because it's made my sleep in it even worse over the years since I got lumbered with this. If I don't go into that shop, by 9:30, the Daily Mail is gone, and I'm not adding to the time I spend on this errand, 2, 3, 4 times a week by taking a longer walk to another shop just to get the Daily Mail. So in the years since I've been stuck with this, or these errands, as it were, I've moaned about it. There'll be plenty more moaning to come over the weeks, months, years. But ultimately, I know that this is community. This is how a community works. The neighbour and myself, we might be 2 generations apart, but we are essentially living out very similar lives on our own in 2 flats right next to each other without knowing too much about each other. My life isn't that different from hers. It's just that I am able to get about and do these errands for her. That's the difference. A couple of other neighbours do bring her mail up, and when it arrives, they'll go up, 1 or 2 of them, I think, knock on her door and do the social distancing talk that she and I don't do. I mean, I haven't seen her for months now. But, that's a few of us mucking in then. It's me who has the stress of the magazines and papers and the cash flow problem during the week, which is further complicated by the fact that I have to have the right change now, because obviously she can't get to her bank. During the week, I had got the sense that something was wrong. There were no responses to my texts, and if I don't get a response to my text after a few hours, I'll just look out into the hallway just to make sure that she's picked up her mail or picked up the magazines that I leave by her door. Once I see that, I can relax. If I don't see that she's picked the stuff up, then I do start to worry. I start to think, well, what's happened? Start to fear the worst. The errands have become a bigger pain during the lockdown because that small shop across the road, you don't want to be in a small space right now for any length of time. That's what I've always said about this period. It's about being sensible. Ultimately, whether you get this virus or not is going to be down to luck as much as being sensible. But it does frustrate me that I have to find myself in that shop a couple of times a week. I always make sure I have the right change, though this Sunday I didn't. The neighbour needed change again. I was short of it, so I had to get changed from the newsagent for the first time during the lockdown. New guy in there yesterday morning, Sunday morning. He was wearing latex gloves, blue like my library book handling gloves. Anyway, I'm digressing here. Basically, I was fretting about face masking it in there. I had been considering it for weeks. I just thought, given I hadn't been doing it in that shop, only in that shop, because, like Small Talk and I do have the odd exchange, I wondered, well, firstly, I thought it was going to be too big a deal for me to go in there with a face mask. So the government's very late in the day announcement last week that from the 24th of July, face masks are going to be required to go into shops. I was actually quite happy about that, other than the fact we had to wait until the 24th. It gave me the excuse to, go into like Small Talk's shop with the face mask. I did wonder if I'd need to acknowledge the mask, perhaps in a light-hearted fashion with like Small Talk. Not so much now like Small Talk, the erstwhile taciturn shop co-owner, but certainly with like Small Talk, I think that I might have needed to maybe draw attention to the mask. However, on Friday, I pulled off an unexpected and perhaps remarkable double, if I say so myself. I was returning home from the run in my double shorts, the ankle cut up after the keys had cut through the little budget kitchen paper towel stuffed into my unbranded running sock. It was an unbranded running sock on, pair of socks on Friday. And of course, what do you do if you cut your ankle up on the Friday on your run? You stuff the keys back down the same sock on the Monday and make the ankle even worse. There's common sense for you. Back to Friday, I was making my way back from the run. There's the bottle of water. I'm so disorganized. This is all because I'm trying to hold the mirror with the left hand so I can check the LCD display as I'm doing now on the mic. Battery's still holding out. It's going to be a long show today. I really do need these 2 bars to hold out for me. Where was I? So I crossed over to my side of the road. I was coming back from the park. I saw like Small Talk crossing from the shop to my side of the road. And I think I've only seen him outside the shop once or twice in our couple of years of exchanging Small Talk. And I hadn't seen him with his baseball cap in a while. He didn't recognize me. I didn't have the usual beanie hat on. I was in shorts. I was scalped. He hadn't seen me without the mullet. And I thought, as I was walking past him, I thought, I can walk past him here because it's clear he hasn't recognized me. Or I could kill a couple of birds with one stone here with this unexpected opportunity. He's never seen me in shorts. That's one, okay? Which incidentally is why I don't run at the weekends usually, because I've often considered a weekend morning run. I could carry the newspaper change in a sandwich bag, stuff it down my socks, pick the paper on the way home. This is pre-pandemic thinking. But as I've said a few times in the past, I do find it hard to engage with people when I'm in shorts. So he hadn't seen me in shorts before, and he hadn't seen me post-mullet. And despite the warmer weather, I'd still been going in there with the beanie hat because I think it would have been harder for me to acknowledge the hair. I would have felt that I had to acknowledge the hair if he didn't say anything, or maybe he didn't feel that he knew me well enough to make some light-hearted remark on me losing the mullet stroke bouffant. So I didn't know how that was going to work. I thought that acknowledging the face mask in a light-hearted fashion would have been the easier option. So as I was walking past him on Friday, realizing that he hadn't recognized me, I just thought in the end, this is an opportunity that's too good to miss for me. And if I'd let it pass, I'd have to wear the beanie hat when I'm going in face masked, just so he'd know that it was me, because he also wouldn't recognize me without the hair. But now he would have seen the scalp. He'd know that I'd lost the hair. He's seen me in shorts, major milestones that we've reached here in our relationship. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to make the most of this moment. So I gave him the hey. He looked up from his phone, definitely looked thrown. I continued walking a few meters to my building after smiling at him, wondering whether he might have glanced back and whether it would have been the scalp or the shorts that he might have done the double take on. Obviously, this didn't quite tackle the issue of face masking it in there on Saturday morning. I went in there on Saturday morning with a face mask. Did I have a hat? Yes, I had my hat on as well, the beanie hat. The Daily Mail hadn't arrived yet, so he didn't acknowledge the mask. I think there might have been a half smile on his face as if to say, oh, now you're wearing the mask. But he said to come back in an hour for the mail, so I had to go back in. Of course, by then he knew that it was me. I think he must have said to Likes Latex, the new assistant, or might have said anyway, that guy's changed. Mask, shorts, shaven head, something's going on with his life. Been waiting for him to mask up for months, and now he's masking up. On the beanie hat, I've been piloting a new hat removal technique just this last week on getting back into the flat. Now, with the elastic shot on the beanie, it's not a difficult technique at all. It looks more like a Rasta hat these days, actually. And it needed to be fair, just to hold the mullet and bouffant in place this year. Now, with the beanie hat, I just slip a finger underneath the rim of the hat, no contact with the exterior of the hat. I slide the hat off and turn it inside out. And I'm pleased with that. I do wonder why it took me so long to come up with that. Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available, episode 252. Ways to support the show, as always, Apple Podcast reviews. They just take 30 seconds of your time, and if it wasn't so important, I wouldn't be asking every week. No reviews this year, actually, and just one review in the last couple of years. The good thing about an Apple Podcasts review is that it increases your show's visibility in the iTunes store, helps more people find you. That means a bigger audience, means perhaps more opportunities for the show. It's a simple thing, and if you've never reviewed the show on Apple Podcasts, if you do have an Apple Podcasts account, I'd be grateful for a review if you do enjoy the show. If you don't enjoy the show, of course, please don't bother. You can also support the show via Amazon. You click on the Amazon link on my website, danielruiztizon.com. There's an Amazon link on the homepage. You click on that link, takes you through to Amazon as normal. You do your shopping as normal, and a small percentage of your purchase comes back to the show at no extra cost to you. There are also PayPal and Coffee.com links at danielruiztizon.com. Donations, large or small, welcomed, and either will get you that week's Patreon show we transferred to you right away. Well, not right away. That would suggest that I'm not busy at all. But at some point that day, that same day, I'll have your details and I'll retransfer the show to you. He said his voice rising because I'm getting to the next exciting bit here. Most importantly, the best way to support this work is via the Patron page. It's just $7 a month. And right now you're getting nearly 2 hours of content every week. And since last week, I've also introduced a second tier, an introductory tier for those of you unsure about committing to supporting the show. It's the Toe Dipper, which is just $3.50 a month as opposed to $7. And if you sign up to the Toe Dipper, you get access to every other Patreon episode, and as a welcome you also get access to the studio episode of the A to Z of Me and My Dad that was released to patrons back in the spring, and the first Toe Dipper patron episode last Thursday's 251. That's been unlocked for any dippers, the Toe Dippers. I think the $7 a month patrons, they know the dippers as the tighties, as in tight, but that's not how I'll know the dippers. I'll know them as the dippers. Any tier lower than the Toe Dipper, and I think I'll probably need to call that tier the Furlough Special. So you've got 2 tiers of support now on the Patreon page. Please do visit patreon.com/DRT available. Sign up there to support a different kind of podcast and join the 16, keeping this show alive, keeping this show coming back every week. I don't think you're going to find many better deals out there And I promise you, I'm not going to try and flog you a mattress as well during the show. I had another distressing catnap dream on Saturday, which becomes even more important now, today, because it will explain, I think it'll go a long way to explaining what I'm adding at the end of the show after the outro theme tune. I think it'll explain why I was so shook up today after my run. Now, catnap, distressing dream, number 99 of 2020, something like that, did lower my mood for a while on Saturday, as these catnap dreams tend to do. Now, in this dream, if you're a new listener, let me explain to you that I only seem to dream nowadays when I catnap. And this was, I think, a late morning catnap. And in this dream, these absolute, the sound of South London, etc., etc. Right, where was I? Catnap dream, bad dream, number 99 of 2020. Okay, let me try and get back to this. Right, so this catnap. Okay, I was in the same bedroom as I am now, the bedroom in this flat, with the train track about 30 meters away from the window. There was a Z bed in the room in this dream. The ex was there briefly. One of their friends was also staying in the room, a friend that had stayed with us when we were together here. And I said to the ex in regards to her friend, they can't stay in the study. And she reminded me that it shouldn't have been a big deal for me because I'd spent the best part of 24 years sharing a bedroom with my family, which I suppose was a fair point, if a little below the belt. I just felt so sad in this dream again. It's always how I feel in these dreams. I woke up feeling bereft, and within the dream itself, I was trying to wake myself up from the dream, if that makes sense. I was telling myself, this is just another bad catnap dream, wake up. Then I was telling myself, I want to see what I look like in the mirror when I feel this sad, because in real life, these moments for me, thankfully, are fleeting. They happen, but they pass. They rock me, but they pass. I know how it works, but in my dreams, that's the pervading feeling. And within the dream, I found myself looking at myself in a mirror, I think in the mirror that's by the bed, and I was seeing how low I looked. And I was asking myself, as I was seeing this face looking back at me, I was asking myself, how did this become me? What decisions, what things, what did I go through for this to be me, for this to be my life, for me to be feeling like this? As I was looking in the mirror, and this is still within the dream, remember, my middle-aged face began to morph into my childhood face, not fully, but the childhood face was threatening to come through. Well, it might have been the teenage face, actually. I was a late developer, didn't start shaving until I was 17. So I like to think it was, my face as a 7 or 8-year-old, but there wasn't much difference between that face and the 16-year-old face. So this face, this childhood face, was threatening to come through without quite usurping the middle-aged features. So there appeared to be a fusion of the two faces, and it was just another weird catnap dream, which is why I fight so hard in recent months to avoid having the catnap. But this weekend I was just feeling listless again and tired, not enough sleep, and I just thought, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to risk the catnap dream. I need to rest. Let's go to some freelance life ads now. I've got a few this week. I've been collecting them for a while, and I thought I might be struggling for content this week, which I'm not, but they're here in my notes now, so I might as well give them to you. I think I might have seen this one before. This one's from India. I want to ban pornographic videos. And the blurb says, there is a huge adult industry named pornographic industry. Not sure they needed the second industry there. A huge adult industry named pornographic industry, which is ruining people's life. These are all their grammatical errors. I'm just reading these ads as I see them. Not sure the Space Daddy would agree that the pornographic industry is ruining people's lives. I think I think the Space Daddy wouldn't be able to function without porn. And the ad continues, I want to tell the people the bad impact of these sites. So basically, I want to ban this sites by writing artsil, which I think is meant to be article, on them. The next freelance life ad, this is from the US. I think this one's very niche. Do you know an albino from Tanzania? I want to interview you. Again, I wonder, that sounds familiar. I wonder if I've read that one out before. The ad continues, I'm looking for someone from Tanzania, or Tanzania. Should be consistent with that. Urinal. I'm looking for someone from Tanzania to talk about how it is to live as an albino in Tanzania on my podcast. If you know an albino, that would be great! Exclamation mark. The interview would last for 1 hour via Skype. Do you guys know any albinos from Tanzania? Moving on. Next ad, I have a martial arts school and I came up with an idea for a jingle, in brackets, Spider-Man theme song beat. I'm guessing that's Spider-Man, the most recent films. It says log interview URL. The ad continues, can you please record it with music and make it cool? I want to use it for marketing, social media, website, etc. And I think I think this is a guy, I don't think a woman would come up with this kind of crap ad. The lyrics, and I can't sing it to any tune. I would if I knew what the Spider-Man theme song was, but the lyrics are Power 3 Academy, when you're here, your family, martial arts is our speciality, fitness classes for you and me, work out together, wear Power 3. Obviously, I think I've been clear on my thoughts on martial arts in the past. I've seen them work in the street. They're effective. There's no denying that. I think my issue with martial arts is the sounds you need to make when you're throwing your punches, and the fact that martial arts classes tend to be in bare feet. I think hygiene-wise, I don't think that's great. It'd be interesting to know. I mean, Verucas are very high in the swimming community. So I think most swimmers will get them at some point or another. I remember when I used to swim at Brixton, I'd never see anyone except myself go into the pool in aquatic shoes. There was such a disregard for the possibility of getting a verruca. But I'm guessing that in the martial arts world, given that they train in bare feet, that verrucas are also a problem for dogs now. First of all, police siren, now dogs across the road outside the vets. Okay, let's just move on. This is one final freelance life ad. It's actually more porn. The headline is Audio Transcription of Adult Content. Experience level wanted is expert. Estimated project duration 1 to 6 months. Interested in helping develop transcription approaches to the language of intercourse? That's how it begins, genuinely. We need people to edit transcripts of sexually explicit audio. I don't think they say where that audio is coming from. Using our specialized style guide, you will structure the transcripts to allow for analysis of the audio. The pay will start around 60 cents a minute. It says $36 an hour. This ad is, I think it's from the States. Plus pay to learn the style guide. I don't understand that last bit. The ad continues, we are working on developing an automatic speech recognition tool for parts of language that have never been standardized and are yet integral to our human existence. In this project, in brackets stage 1, you will be asked to learn a linguistically motivated transcription scheme for sexual communication, edit transcripts in which adults talk about sex and have sexual intercourse, identify problems in the data, in brackets, multiple languages, undecipherable words. Later, in stage 2, you might be asked to help us develop the next phase of labeling for sexual communication itself. If interested, apply! Exclamation mark. We would love to tell you more about the logistics and science behind this project. Who knew that there was science behind porn? You're listening to Daniel Ruiz Tizon. Is available episode 252, Sweating the Small Stuff, currently twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. We've already had the show interrupted by the usual police sirens. Hopefully there won't be any more, but you never know. With this show, ways to get in touch: Twitter and Instagram, 1607 West Egg. Facebook page, as I say every week now, still not functioning, but I am able to ads promotional stuff via the phone app, which is the only way I can access my own Facebook podcast page. And you can always email the show, DRT, available at westx1607.co.uk. Lambeth Library is reopening today. I think the only one of my libraries, the 4 boroughs that I'm with, it's either Southwark Library. Yeah, I think it's Southwark Library is the only one that hasn't reopened its libraries yet. This week, or this last few days, I'm reading Lloyd Shepherd's The English Monster. It's my second Lloyd Shepherd book. I didn't realise that his Charles Horton Regency books were a series, so I've started them in the wrong order, as this one that I'm reading, The English Monster, is the first in the series. It's a slow burner, but by Saturday evening I couldn't put it down. It's definitely better than the one I did read, Savage Magic. It's gripping. The blurb, this is from Goodreads, and it's not normally a period of history that I'm that interested in, though I have a couple of books on the Radcliffe highway murders that I bought, I think, 10, 11 years ago when a couple of books came out on that subject, which back then was completely new to me. In the East End of Regency London, 2 families lie butchered, residents of the notorious Radcliffe highway. The victims bear the mark of unprecedented brutality. Panic sweeps the country as its public cries for justice, but these murders stem from an older horror, its source a sea voyage 2 centuries old. In a ship owned by Queen Elizabeth herself, a young man embarks on England's first venture into a new trade, human souls, as a nation's sins ripen and bloom, to be harvested in a bloody frenzy on the twisted streets of Regency Wapping. An English monster is born. It's really, really enjoyable. Really enjoyable. It's strange that every now and then I'll have a book where the first 100 pages are a real problem. This one was definitely one of those, and then it just caught fire for me, and I've just not been able to put it down. Reminds me of Murakami's A Wild Sheep Chase. I mean, I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books this last decade, but I still think A Wild Sheep Chase, certainly the final 100 pages, still stands out as the best book I've read in that time. And I had a real struggle with that book at the start, and then I just hit a point in the book where I thought this is actually quite incredible. It's a library book. It's a Lambeth Library book, The English Monster. Some soiled pages, not as bad as the previous book I was reading, The Grand Duchess of Nowhere, I think. That one was really filthy. But this one, a few soiled pages towards the middle of the book. Got my latex gloves, running very low stock-wise. I'm using Blue Hospital gloves, which I picked up when my uncle was in hospital before Christmas. And no chance of getting some of those better quality gloves now. So I think when these run out, I'm obviously going to have to go back to Poundland latex gloves, which is probably going to be a shock to the system. So Lambeth Libraries, they've reopened today, and I've been in touch because I think I misread the information on their website. I thought you had to make an appointment just to go and return books and pick up any books, but it's appointment only if you need to book like a machine to work at. So I just need to be in and out. Of course, social distancing measures are in place. Westminster are doing things slightly differently as well. So I'm just making myself familiar with this new world. I might have said it last week, but I do remember that, I'm not sure if I did, but anyway, I remember, I think it was a few days before the lockdown started. It was a Friday, the last Friday before the lockdown came in. And that Friday I was really considering going to Camberwell Library, which is one of my favourite libraries. And I thought that day, well, maybe now the time for going to libraries has passed because this virus looks like it's going to be a serious, serious problem. And I can't believe that as late as that Friday, just days before the lockdown started, when it was clear that supermarkets were starting to run short of goods, when people were panicking, I can't believe that I was still at that point considering going into a library, and I think it was a good decision on my part that I didn't. Return books, of course, will go into quarantine for a few days. I'm in two minds about whether I'm going to take out any books. I think I'm going to take out a Lloyd Shepherd book from Westminster Library in Victoria. I think I'll, just because it's that good. I think I'm going to risk the virus for some more Lloyd Shepherd. Now to this week's Nectar Points update. On my dreaded walk to the home of the Brixton Little Pistons on Friday afternoon on Acre Lane, one of the grimmest, greyest roads I've ever known. It's up there with Landor Road in SW9, which was a couple of roads away from where I grew up. Even now to this day, the Stockwell end of it is okay. The Clapham North end of Landor Road is dreadful. It remains dreadful. It's a hangover from old South London that has never really changed, and I've just always found that a road that really crushes my spirits. But on my dreaded walk to the Brixton Little, I spoke with a space daddy. We exchanged updates on our various writing projects. I mentioned there had been some creative pluses for me that might not have been possible without the lockdown. I mean, there have been opportunities or former opportunities that have now been closed to me, theatre closures. That was a real blow early on. But the situation's also given me and many more time to think, to reassess, to consider possible ways through this, other ways through this. But at the same time, at this stage of the lockdown, as I touched on in Thursday's Patron episode, I'm also fighting this listlessness, this feeling that's gradually enveloped me as the lockdown has gone on. I'm up too early sometimes, given how long my days are, and by lunchtime, mentally, I've downed tools a couple of hours before I physically down them. The Space Daddy said that he feels that's a similar story for many people, that it's such a strange time that it's very hard to maintain a proper structure to your day on a daily basis. At the start of the lockdown, when I expressed concern at that particular time that I was susceptible to the catnap as I tried to adjust to this new world, I remember the Space Daddy telling me that catnaps weren't a bad thing, that I shouldn't fight the catnaps. And I read a similar piece in The Guardian that said, it wouldn't be a bad thing. If you want to just have a nap, have a nap. This is not a normal time. I had to take this particular bit of advice from the Space Daddy with a pinch of salt, because the Space Daddy's love of the catnap has been a regular feature of his life. It's nothing new. It's up there with his love of the kebab. He naps most days, I think, and he's good on it too, to be fair. It works for him. And as I've said many times, catnaps, the only time I can actually fall into a deep sleep. But that post-catnap grogginess is something I thoroughly dislike. It's why when I was a kid and we used to go to Spain every few summers, I didn't like the siesta. And even when I was going to Spain a lot in the noughties, the siesta thing, it just didn't work for me. Although in that heat, you understand why they have the siesta. And after a catnap, no amount of throwing cold water on my face, no amount of more coffee in a glass, always in a glass, cliche, etc., can get me back firing on all cylinders. But I do accept that during this very weird and worrying period, which is really shaping up to be an era for all of us, I accept that nothing is off the table, and it could be that I move forward with the catnapping to help with the lack of proper sleep. It may be that this is a necessary evil for me in order to get the amount of sleep that I should be getting. The Space Daddy invited me, we'll get to the shots shortly. I'm rambling, sorry. The Space Daddy, he invited me round early August when the lockdown eases further. So it would be nice to go back to his place. I'm not sure bubble-wise how that's going to work, but seeing him would bring down the average age of my pandemic bubble by about 32, 33 years. Psychologically, that would be a bit of a boon. Last week's bubble visit to my aunt and uncles, that was my 5th. I think I'm making my 6th tomorrow because I've got to pick my aunt up. We're going to the cemetery. I think I'm going to have to say to her tomorrow, look, I'm in the bubble. I think I should be allowed to use your loo if I need to urinate, because there's no way I'm going to be able to bust it to hers, have a coffee there, go to the cemetery, have more coffee maybe if there are any cafes open around there. We've got to go to Lidl as well to pick up some flowers. She wants to get them from there tomorrow to take to the cemetery. I need to be able to use her loo. Otherwise, I'm going to be hours without going to the loo. And I'll need to broach that with her tomorrow. But last week's visit, that was my fifth bubble visit, and I remembered my uncle's birthday is coming up at the start of August, and we had a really nice gathering last year for his 80th. This year, obviously, nothing on the cards, and my aunt said right away, don't buy him anything. My uncle just glared at her. My aunt continued, he's got enough wine. Besides, he doesn't really drink anymore. So he can't buy me anything? My uncle said to her, there's nothing you need. My aunt shot back before out of the blue asking me, hey, do you still have mice? As I was trying to see how my aunt had managed to get in such a query, where that had come from, my uncle just shook his head. Strange, he said, I'm into my final birthdays now, and my wife is telling my nephew not to bother getting me anything. That's hardly going to make me feel positive about things. I could see where my uncle was coming from. I will get him something, of course. I'll just try and be a bit creative this year with what I get him. The thing is, neither of them are readers. Whereas with my mum, as I moved into my 20s, I was able to put a bit more thought into her presence. You know, the morning that she passed away, I'd actually been to, I don't think it's there anymore, a big Spanish bookshop that was just off Regent Street, might have been Great Marlborough Street at the time. It was a wonderful big Spanish bookshop, and I bought her a Spanish copy of The Turn of the Screw. And I can't really do that with my aunt and uncle. As I say, they're not readers, so they're both very difficult. Well, certainly for me, I'm never great with ideas. I find them difficult to buy for, but every year it's the same thing. Whenever I'm trying to buy my uncle something, my aunt will always say, don't get him anything. Let's get back to the shopping. Anyway, back to Lidl. Quiet again on Friday afternoon, thankfully. Notable only actually for a very curious customer, late middle-aged woman. She looked like she was in her 60s, but I had the feeling she was younger than that from the way that she moved. Very energetic, pushing a trolley that was quickly filling up. The trolley suggested she either runs a restaurant that was reopening, or judging by the heft on her, she likes her food. What got my attention, though, was the trolley pushing style that she had. It didn't matter if there were customers in her way. She didn't ask them to move. She seemed to have no communication skills at all. She just continued moving with the trolley through the aisles, nudging people with the trolley, the nose of the trolley, until they moved. Many customers, understandably, were bemused by this. Some were vexed by it. She didn't care. Over by the hot sauce shelves, which for some reason was next to the sports shoes. I don't understand the thinking there. Surely the hot sauce might work better next to the noodles, for instance, which were a few aisles away. But in the Brixton store, they've got sports shoes next to the hot sauce. But she was moving through that particular aisle very aggressively, and there was a girl with her mum on the same aisle. The girl must have been in her mid to late teens, and very polite, kept moving for trolley woman, but trolley woman was relentless and just kept moving through that aisle, nudging the girl a few times. By about the fourth or the fifth nudge, I could see the girl thinking, what is going on here? Trolley woman's trolley action reminded me of the great Ghanaian boxer of the 80s, Azuma Nelson, a two-time world champion. He had this very striking Ned Kelly letterbox type defense, which was all the more striking because he did not stop coming forward. So this letterbox type defense, it might have been suggestive that he was a very defensive boxer, but he didn't stop coming forward. He was a very attacking fighter, an absolute nightmare for his opponents, most of whom he destroyed. And that's what the trolley action reminded me of. At one point, after the girl got nudged again by the trolley, I saw her catch my eye as if to say, look, you might have come across this trolley style before, but I'm only in my second decade of life. This is new to me. I don't know what to do here. But it was new to me too. Here we go. Another siren. Come through. There we go. Sound of South London, etc., etc. Trolley Woman was even more distinctive, I think, because she had a permanent gurn fixed to her face, similar to those gurners, actually, who compete in gurning contests, gurning through the horse collars. The gurning was definitely, I think, at that level. And I think if you entered her in a contest, she would have all the attributes to do well. She had the lower lip over the upper lip. She just appeared a natural gurner. And it could be that there might have been some gurning equivalent of an A&R guy in the store on Friday that might have seen a gurning and decided to approach her, thinking I might have discovered some new major gurning talent here who's got a few wins in her. A bit like Sholarama, who was discovered singing on a train platform in the mid-90s, signed up by an A&R guy who'd seen her, and I think for a while after that there were plenty of girls who would sing on public transport inspired by the Sholarama story, hoping that they too would be discovered. But I think Sholarama was a one-off, and I was recalling the Sholarama thing on Friday, wondering if this gurner might be discovered in similar fashion. Anyway, enough with the gurning, to the nectar points. Finally, didn't buy any fish, by the way, in case you're wondering. 2 weeks now without buying breaded fish, heavily breaded fish. It'd be actually very hard to find the fish in there. I'm still sitting on 3 chicken steaks, the £1.69 for 4 chicken steaks that I bought about 10 days ago. I stuck them in the oven on their expiry date. I've got 3 sitting in the fridge. Very strong smell. Chicken is not the first thing that springs to mind, I should say there. But, the key with German budget supermarket food is the first few times that you try something, it brutalizes your taste buds until you get used to it. And then once you get used to it, you can never buy the better equivalent of that. For example, I could never, if I was to get used to these chicken steaks, okay, I probably at some point when I had the money, I wouldn't be able to buy their equivalent in Waitrose. I'm just, I'll have damaged my taste buds. I'll have brutalized them. I'll only be able to eat a certain quality of food. A few weeks back, I bought some savoury rice, microwavable savoury rice from Lidl, and I've always been a fan of that savoury rice. Bit of nostalgia there because my dad used to eat a lot of savoury rice or golden rice, whichever one it was. I had a little one a few weeks ago. It tasted as bad as it smelt, and it smelt to the extent that I had to open the windows after having it, which I normally only do after I put fish in the oven. So no more savoury rice from Lidl. I remember in the early years of this show, I think in 2013, during my spell living in a sublet in Peckham, I got addicted to Chinese takeaways from Iceland. And I got addicted to them to the extent that before going to the Man in the mornings, I would stop off at the Icelands in Brixton and pick up the Chinese takeaways. But the first few weeks, that did not taste like any Chinese takeaway I'd ever had. But I got used to it. That was the key. You get used to it, and then you can survive on that stuff. I'm determined not to do that really anymore if I don't need to do it anymore. But the chicken steaks they'll definitely require some effort on my part if they're to become a regular feature. My jaw's all over the place today. If they're to become a regular feature of my, a regular staple of my shop, my weekly shop. Let's put it that way. On the calzone, I retweaked the layering of the added ingredients because the week before I'd had a few cold layers. I think I put the grated cheese on first, and it didn't cook through properly the Saturday before last. So I was back on calzone form on Sloth Saturday, just gone. Really nice calzone pizza that I made. Let's have a look at the nectar points. My opening balance was 44 points going into this week's shop. Bought the pizza, semi-skimmed, 4 pints. I was sitting on 10 pints of milk over the weekend. Felt like a milk colossus More crackers, budget beans, because I still can't find the Newgate beans in Lidl. Bought another coffee refill, another yogurt, 4 single oranges. It's not a great season for oranges at the moment, and a loose bacon potato for 24p. I spent £14 and a penny, earned 14 points, giving me a new points balance of 58. I think at this rate I'm going to be lucky if I'm nearing the 500 towards the Christmas season. And of course then the usual cash purchase for the Radio Times, the Neighbours Radio Times, £3.30, giving me 3 nectar points, and that meant I finished last week with a new points balance of 61, which is worth 30 pence. So not too bad. Picked up the OK magazine again. It was the last copy in W.H. Smith's. And that is it on that celebrity magazine note. That is the end of this week's show. Patrons get their weekly bonus edition, episode 253, this Thursday. If you want to join them, sign up at patreon.com/DRT available. You got the full tin, you got the toe dipper. Remember, maybe the numbers will be bolstered after today's show. The show will continue after the theme tune as I go over the strange incident in the park this morning while it was still fresh in my mind. Meantime, thank you guys for listening. If you're not joining us on Thursday, I'm back next Monday with episode 254. Get those shoulders back, keep on walking towards the sun, wash those hands. I'm Daniel Ruiz Tizon, and this start of the week I have been available. I'm going to record this bit now on my phone. It's about 12 minutes past 12. And I'll talk about this now because by the time I get around to talking about it, the emotion of the incident might have probably would have worn off and might have been a better thing to talk about it in a couple of hours rather than now. But I think, it could be oversharing. It's not a big audience anyway. I tend to keep this stuff for the patrons. But, life is such now, and I don't mean to sound sorry for myself, and I hope I'm not coming across that way, because I think what I tried to do just now was a bit of a positive for me at least. I think the lack of a social circle, the lack of being able to speak maybe, to the people that used to be in my life, it isn't there. So, maybe I can get something good out of this show today by talking about the incident. I've done the right things this morning. I've prepped the show. I've then gone for a run. I think I haven't checked my times yet, but, I think I've done my best in a couple of months. Might have hit the 9K today. You'll hear about it later on the show because this bit is just going to be something that I'm going to have to add on. So it's going to sound different. So I've done the right things, I'm trying to feed some blue sky thinking into today's show and, just get the show out there, knowing that I can just focus on the editing this afternoon rather than having to worry about a run. It was warm out there, probably too warm for me, but, I pushed through. I met my target, might have exceeded it. As I was finishing up my third lap, come to around 50 minutes, the idea to try and get to the 9K, because I think 3 full laps on my route comes to just under 9, and mentally I wanted to get up to 9. I saw someone, so I doubled up this tiny little bit right at the end, which, a year ago would have been quite a big run for me, but now it's quite a small run. I can do it with my eyes closed, and so I doubled up on that bit. And as I did, and I'm actually wet here. That's how, well, it's not really that warm today, but obviously I'm just coming back from a run. It's one of those now in this weather where you're just half man, half water. And as I was coming on that final bit of the run, I saw a woman who looked like my ex, spitting image, but also the hair, the type of glasses. The bag was the only thing I wasn't sure about.
Actually, and this is, now I'm thinking, this is the bit where I have gone wrong, I think, because she was wearing, this woman, so this bit is coming to me now, and it might not have come to me if I hadn't talked about it now, because I might have forgotten this detail. So I think now, right now, here I am, 3.5 minutes into this bit. I think this is a worthwhile detail. Sorry, it's worthwhile. I'm not going to edit this bit. I'm just going to talk. It's been worth me talking about this right after it's happened because, it's fresh in my memory. And the reason I don't think this was my ex was because this person looked like they were wearing a very smart button shirt, and the ex, I can't really talk because, I'm full of weird things and OCDs, but she had a phobia of buttons, which, if you think sounds weird, let me tell you, I had to watch out. I'm lucky I'm not a fashionable guy and I don't often update the wardrobe, but when I did, I had to watch what I bought. Couldn't really buy anything with buttons. That's how pronounced the phobia was. Certainly quite unusual, and that's not to mock that phobia. We all have our weird things, me probably more than most, and I certainly have more than my fair share. And it was a beige shirt, smart shirt. The hair could have been her, lighter maybe than I remembered it, but I'm thinking people aren't going to look like they normally do, and she would probably not have recognised me because, I've got a big, well, she probably might have recognised a big beard, but, the head's been shaved. She was never with me when I'd shaved my head in the past. I didn't get that great a look at the face, but what I did, and just the gait and the types of shades that this woman was wearing, I thought, that's her. And it was bothering me. And then I was finishing my run, and it was just the movement, the gait, the way this woman moved. I was certain, he said, dropping his T's, I was certain it was her after a while. And, I'm in the flat where we lived. So even though they're meant to be abroad, I thought, well, everything's quite weird now. So maybe she ended up being stuck here and she's staying somewhere else. And this person looked like they were going around trying to kill some time, as so many of us are right now. And, plenty of time has passed, and I'm, plagued by these awful catnap dreams that I will have told you about on today's show. And I just thought, if it's her, this is an opportunity just to say, maybe to try and be strong enough now, just to say, look, I hope you're okay, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you can't come to the flat because of the pandemic, but I don't like you to see, I don't like to see you walking around aimlessly. I hope you're well. And it's, it was important to me that I had that opportunity. I thought, I wouldn't have been able to do this a year ago. And it's not that I'm strong enough now. I just feel that for me, I probably need to do it because this is why I'm plagued by these dreams. And the thing is, I actually came out of this a lot worse, out of this particular relationship. And, you get to an age now, and I'm at that age. I'm as old as the door number that I lived at for 24 years. And, you're at that age now where things follow their natural order, So, you go through that period where you lose the older generation, and then you move through your life and you start losing people of your own generation, and that's the way life works. And I think even if you'd been married 2 or 3 times and that first person wasn't right for you, that as you move through life, if you heard something happen to them, then if you're a decent kind of person, that's going to hurt you regardless. And the person that you might be with at that point in your life would understand that. That's part of your life. That's part of your history. You were intimate with that person. You shared a part of your life together. That's part of that's part of your life. And as I say, maybe I'm oversharing here, but this show, very quickly when it started, it became about life. I got caught up in the Great Recession, and now I'm caught up in something else. And at the same time, as trying to come back from a breakup. And breakups, for me, they're as close as you get to a bereavement. And I've had plenty of those, as you know, because I talk about them enough. They shaped you. They've certainly shaped me. But this isn't that far off it. And it does feel like a bereavement in many ways. So I watched this person come back to me anyway, come back my way. And then they stopped under some trees where I was just warming down, and I could see them talking to someone briefly who had a little dog. And then I saw them looking at a map just by the gate, one of the entrances of the park. And I thought, well, they know where they are. If they're if they're my ex, they'll know where they are because, they've lived here for a long time. And that still didn't do it for me. So as I left the park, I sighted them again. They turned off through this other road and they were walking up the hill. And I thought, well, screw the bins this week. I'm not doing the bins this week. Someone else can do them in the building. And I started, walking up behind this woman who was about 30, 40 meters behind me. And it looked like I was analysing, her physiology, the way she was moving, very distinctive movements. And I thought, I think it's her. The only thing I wasn't sure about was the bag. As I say, I didn't recognise the bag, and I've only just now recalled that little detail about the buttons. And I started closing the gap. I thought this might just be the only chance I ever have just to see them, say, how are you? Hope you're okay. I'm sorry about what happened. I miss you, but I accept it, and I just want you to be happy. And, and that bit, you can't come to the flat, by the way. I'm happy to take on the TV licence. It's, not right that that's still in your name. I'll take that responsibility off your hands. I'll add it to what I'm already doing. And I thought, what am I doing here? On the one hand, I'm relieved that I've been shaken up like this because, the pills have made me feel like a robot. But at the same time, it was just an illustration to me of, something that's kind of fell in me every day. There's always a moment every day, particularly at the weekends, as I've said. But anyway, I got to about 5 to 8 meters behind them. They stopped at another bus stop, and I thought, okay, this is my opportunity. There was a break in traffic, and I said their name, and I said it twice, and they didn't turn around. They weren't wearing earphones, and I thought by now there's a real risk here that this isn't that person, and this is going to be like one of those cheesy moments in a film where you call someone's name, you're certain of who they are, and they turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else. It was one of those moments. As they turned round, I still wasn't sure. I had the same sort of pale skin pallor, but their arms and their face looked a lot older, and I thought, well, I'm hard to live with. I'm a difficult guy, but I don't think I was that difficult, because this person looks like who they're with would have put 20 years on them. And I'd said their name loud enough. They hadn't turned. I think if it had have been them, they would have turned. But it really was like living out one of these catnap dreams that I've had. And, I've just had enough of these dreams, like Saturday's dream. It's almost like the numbskulls in the dream department, the catnap dream department are saying, oh, he wants a catnap, does he? We'll give him catnap, let him have it. And it was like that, except it was real life. And I just thought, well, I've got to find out, I've got to find out if it's them. And it doesn't look like it was them, so I've come back. It shook me up a bit. I'm feeling a bit better now just for talking about it. And, I'm just going to be whatever. I'm just going to drop this into the show. I haven't thought about where I'm going to drop it in. It might just be an addendum. It shook me up. It's, a further illustration that I'm certainly at a point in my life where I'm absolutely not ready for anything and not even thinking about it. I just, would like to come through this lockdown situation, being able to put some, building blocks in place, really, to try and move on to the next stage of my life. If something ultimately comes out of that, so be it. But that's not really what it's about. It's about trying to, widen my social circle and, have, friends that I can, talk to about this stuff. As I say, or as I may have said, because I can't really remember what I've said now, it's almost, well, I don't know. I don't know if I feel relieved that despite everything I'm taking, that I've been shaken up to this extent today, that I can talk about it. It may be that it's the pills that made me pursue this person thinking it was them, because they probably would have been alarmed if they'd actually turned around and seen me calling after them. They would have thought, who's this nutter? But it's just, that was it. I just really felt I needed to find out, and I just wanted that opportunity to say, this stuff happens. I've come out of it worse this time. In the past, the boot's been on the other foot. Both are equally bad. One leaves you feeling guilty. The other leaves you feeling very sad and alone. But, the bottom line is, I hope you're well. I hope you're happy, because that's important to me. That's more important than how I might be feeling right now. And that's really what I wanted to say. And I just wanted that on record. And probably if I wasn't so slow and out of it on whatever it is that I'm taking this week, then, I might just leave this for the few patrons that are supporting the show. But, it's happened today. It's Monday. It's happened in the last 20 minutes. I want this on this show while it's fresh. Maybe at some point I'll revisit it and, see it as a turning point. I was ready to face something that's hurt me. And maybe there's some progress there. I don't know. I would have welcomed that opportunity, just to say that. That's it.